Have you ever noticed how the people who earn the most respect are often the ones who say the least? They don't beg for attention, they don't chase approval, they don't bend to fit in, yet when they walk into a room, people take notice. Their presence speaks louder than words ever could. Why? Because they've mastered something rare, an inner strength shaped by boundaries. Quiet, invisible, but unshakable. Respect isn't given to the loudest. It's not handed out to those who try the hardest to please. It's earned by those who know who they are, and more importantly, who they are not. When you know your limits, when you set clear lines and honor them, you silently teach the world how to treat you. That's the real language of respect. And it doesn't need a microphone. Every day, you're either reinforcing your worth or silently trading it for acceptance. People are watching, not just what you say, but what you tolerate, what you allow, what you ignore, hoping it'll go away. The truth is, boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They're doors to keep your self-worth in. Without them, you'll find yourself constantly over-explaining, over-giving, and overextending, hoping someone, somewhere, will finally see your value. But value isn't proven. It's declared. Not through confrontation, but through quiet conviction. There's something magnetic about a person who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't try to impress, who doesn't chase. That person is anchored, solid, unbothered. And it's not because life is easy for them. It's because they've drawn a line and they don't cross it for anyone. Not because they're cold, but because they've learned the hard way. When you don't protect your peace, someone else will gladly take it from you. We live in a world that rewards busyness, over-accessibility, and constant availability. But the most respected individuals have mastered the art of quiet refusal. They don't answer every call. They don't show up just because they're asked. They weigh every decision against one question: does this honor my time, my values, my peace? If the answer is no, they walk away, without guilt, without drama, without explanation. That's power, and people feel it. There's nothing arrogant about setting a boundary. What's arrogant is expecting someone to betray themselves just to make you comfortable. When you draw a line in the sand, you're not pushing others away. You're inviting the right ones to come closer. Those who understand your limits, respect your presence, and value your time. That's not selfish. That's self-respect. And here's the beautiful part. Once you start holding your ground, something shifts inside you. You stop chasing people. You stop fearing rejection. You stop tying your worth to how others see you. Instead, you begin to radiate quiet confidence. You speak less, but say more. You stop proving and start becoming. And that's the kind of energy that commands respect without a single word. The reward of living with boundaries isn't just peace. It's power. The power to walk into any space knowing you don't need to shrink to be accepted. The power to say no without guilt. The power to be fully yourself without compromise. And when you live like that, respect becomes the natural result. So stay with this message until the end, because the 5 boundaries you're about to learn aren't just strategies, they're truths that can change your life. Not just how others treat you, but how you see yourself. And once you understand the strength you've been sitting on all along, you'll never move the same again. Your boundaries are your backbone. Guard them, speak them, live by them. Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself to please others, the world starts to meet you differently. And that right there is where real respect begins. Time is one of the few things you can never get back. Once spent, it's gone forever. And how you treat your time tells the world everything it needs to know about how you see yourself. If you're always available, always adjusting, always sacrificing your own plans to accommodate others, you're not being kind, you're being invisible. And invisibility doesn't earn respect, it breeds expectation. The more you give without boundaries, the more people assume they're entitled to what you give. You don't have to be busy to value your time, you just have to be clear. Clear about your priorities, clear about what matters, clear about who gets access. When you treat your time like gold, people begin to value it like treasure. But when you treat it like loose change, don't be surprised when others toss it around like it's nothing. Respect starts with how you schedule your life. Saying I'm not available right now doesn't make you rude, it makes you responsible. Responsible for your energy, your rest, your peace. When you let people constantly interrupt your time, you're training them to believe their urgency matters more than your stability. And that's how burnout begins, not from doing too much, but from constantly putting your own needs last. There's a quiet confidence in people who don't rush, who don't jump every time their phone rings, who don't feel guilty for taking space. They're not careless, they're centered. They know that their time is their life, and they don't waste life trying to please people who only show up when it's convenient for them. That kind of clarity commands attention. It sends a message: I value myself enough to protect my time, and men, especially strong men, respect that. Psychologically, we're wired to place higher value on things that are scarce. It's called the scarcity principle. The less available something is, the more desirable it becomes. The same applies to your time and presence. When you're always within reach, you lose mystery, power, and presence. But when you're intentional, when your time is earned, not expected, you create an aura of strength that can't be ignored. This isn't about playing games. It's about honoring yourself. It's about understanding that not everyone deserves your immediate response, your every free moment, your last ounce of energy. Some things are more important: your peace, your goals, your self-respect. And the people who truly care won't be threatened by that. They'll respect it. They'll rise to meet your standards or quietly walk away. Either way, you win. Think about it. The most respected people you know probably don't move with urgency to impress others. They're deliberate. They choose when to engage. They choose who gets their time. And they do it without guilt. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's what it looks like when someone knows their worth and refuses to be rushed by a world that demands instant access to everything. You don't owe anyone your time just because they ask for it. You don't have to explain why you need a moment, a day, a weekend to yourself. Your time is not a debt. It's a resource. And like any valuable resource, it needs protection. You wouldn't leave your bank account open for everyone to take what they want. So why leave your time wide open for people who haven't earned it? Respect grows in the space where you choose yourself. It grows when you say not now and stick to it. It grows when you plan your day and protect those plans with the same intensity you'd protect your future. Because in truth, your time is your future. Every minute spent pleasing someone else at the cost of your own balance is a minute stolen from your own destiny. Start watching how people respond when you stop being endlessly available. The ones who are used to convenience will get uncomfortable. They'll question your distance. They may even try to guilt you back into overgiving. But stay grounded, stay firm, because on the other side of that discomfort is freedom. You're not losing connection, you're filtering for real ones. When you begin to set this boundary, something powerful happens inside you. You feel lighter, you walk taller, you start to recognize just how much energy you were giving away to things that didn't grow you. You stop apologizing for choosing yourself. And slowly, you realize that those who matter the most never needed you to break yourself to be loved. They just needed you to show up whole. Honor your time, defend it with strength. Let it reflect your purpose, your path, your priorities. Because the more seriously you treat it, the more the world will start to take you seriously. And in that space, between clarity and confidence, respect begins to bloom. Quietly, powerfully, unshakably. There's a quiet power in the word no. Not the kind that's shouted or thrown like a weapon, but the kind that stands calm, unshaken, unwavering. The ability to say no without flinching is one of the strongest boundaries you can ever develop. Not just with others, but with yourself. Because every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you say no to your peace, your purpose, your self-respect. Too many people spend their lives trapped in the prison of guilt. They agree to things they don't want to do. They stay in conversations that drain them. They say yes when everything inside them is screaming no, because they fear rejection more than they value their truth. But the truth doesn't go away just because you ignore it. It lingers, it grows heavier, and eventually it shows up as frustration, burnout, or quiet resentment that poisons every relationship you're trying so hard to maintain. When you start honoring your inner no, you begin living with integrity. Not just integrity with others, but integrity with yourself. You stop betraying your own needs. You stop abandoning yourself to keep the peace. And most importantly, you stop teaching people that your comfort is negotiable. There's nothing weak about being kind, but kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. Real kindness includes the strength to speak your limits. To say, I care, but I can't. To say, I understand, but I won't. To say, I hear you, but this doesn't work for me. That level of clarity doesn't push people away. It earns you the respect of those who value honesty over convenience. Psychology calls it assertiveness. Not aggression, not passivity, but the healthy middle ground. Assertiveness is when you value yourself enough to express your needs clearly, directly, and respectfully. It's when your voice aligns with your values. And when you live in that alignment, people begin to trust you because they know where you stand. They know you're not pretending. They know you're not twisting yourself to please the moment. Men especially respect people who are direct, not confrontational, not dramatic, but real. Someone who can look them in the eye and say, I don't agree with that, or that doesn't work for me, without hesitation. That kind of self-trust is magnetic. It speaks volumes without raising its voice. It shows that you are someone who values peace, but not at the cost of self-betrayal. Too often, people confuse saying no with being selfish. But selfishness is taking more than you need. Saying no is protecting what you already have. Your time, your energy, your mental space. You weren't put on this earth to be everything for everyone. And every time you try to be, you lose a piece of yourself in the process. You start to disappear behind the mask of compliance. You smile when you want to rest. You agree when you want to walk away. And slowly, you forget what you even wanted in the first place. Reclaiming your no is about remembering who you are. It's about realizing that you have the right to protect your space without explanation. You don't owe anyone a 20-step reason for why something doesn't feel right. Nobilium is a full sentence. It doesn't need decorating. It doesn't need justification. It just needs truth. And yes, people might be uncomfortable with your boundaries at first, especially if they were benefiting from your silence. But discomfort is not cruelty. It's clarity. And clarity is the birthplace of respect. When people realize you won't bend every time they push, they start to approach you differently. Not with demands, but with consideration. Not with pressure, but with presence. That shift is where true, lasting respect is born. There's a kind of peace that comes with owning your no. It's the peace of sleeping at night knowing you didn't sell yourself short. It's the peace of looking in the mirror and seeing someone you can trust. Someone who didn't abandon their needs to fit someone else's expectations. Someone who stood their ground, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. You don't need to become hard or distant to protect your boundaries. You just need to become rooted. Rooted in your truth, rooted in your values, rooted in the unshakable knowing that your worth isn't up for negotiation. When you live from that place, your no carries weight, your yes becomes sacred, and the world begins to mirror back the respect you finally started giving yourself. Say no when it's right to say no, without anger, without guilt, without fear. Because every time you honor your no, you create space for a stronger yes. The kind of yes that builds your future, aligns with your vision, and protects your soul. That's not just a boundary. That's a revolution. The ability to control your emotions, especially under pressure, is one of the most powerful forms of self-respect you can develop. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending things don't affect you. It's about choosing your response instead of reacting from impulse. Emotional self-control is a boundary that silently demands respect. When others see that you're not easily shaken, not easily offended, and not easily manipulated, they begin to approach you with a different level of regard, not because you forced them to, but because you've earned it through calm strength. In a world where everyone is quick to lash out, quick to overreact, quick to prove a point, your calm becomes your superpower. It sets you apart. When people can't predict your reaction, they can't control your energy. And when they can't control your energy, they have no choice but to respect your space. That's what emotional self-control gives you, not just peace, but quiet authority. You stop being a puppet to the environment around you. You start becoming the one who sets the emotional tone. Most people don't realize how often they give away their power. Someone says the wrong thing, and suddenly your whole mood is gone. Someone looks at you the wrong way, and you feel the need to prove yourself. Someone doesn't text back fast enough, and your confidence starts to shake. But all of that is borrowed power. It's emotional slavery, where your inner state is controlled by something outside of you. And the more you live like that, the more people will push to see what gets a rise out of you. But the moment you learn to pause, to breathe, to observe without reacting, everything changes. You start choosing your battles. You stop wasting energy trying to win small arguments. You learn that silence is often louder than shouting. And more often than not, people who try to provoke you are not testing your intelligence. They're testing your discipline. Because emotional discipline is intimidating. It tells the world that you are not here to be dragged into chaos. You are here to lead yourself no matter what. There's strength in not responding right away. There's power in not needing to have the last word. You don't have to prove you're right to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to fix every lie told about you. You don't have to show up to every argument you're invited to. Emotional control gives you the freedom to walk away with your dignity intact, while others are still caught in the fire of their own reactions. And here's the deeper truth. People trust those who are emotionally stable. They might be entertained by drama, but they don't respect it. The ones who move with patience, clarity, and composure, those are the ones people follow. Those are the ones who hold power, not just in the room, but in every relationship they step into. Because people feel safe around grounded energy. They know they won't be attacked, manipulated, or guilted into anything. That emotional safety earns respect without saying a word. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to react to be strong. True strength is when you could explode, but choose peace instead. When you could break down but stay centered. When you could seek revenge but let go. That's not weakness, that's emotional maturity. And it's the kind of maturity that creates real boundaries. The kind that protect your peace, demand respect, and elevate your presence in every area of life. This boundary isn't about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally intelligent. It's knowing that emotions are visitors, not permanent residents. They come, they go, they inform. But they don't get to lead. You lead. You decide what gets your energy. And when you do that consistently, people stop testing you. They start adjusting to you because your calm becomes a mirror, reflecting their chaos back at them. And if they can't match your peace, they either rise or leave. Never let someone else's lack of control pull you out of alignment. Never let their chaos become your normal. You were built for more than emotional reactions. You were built to lead your own life. And when people see that you won't be moved by pressure, guilt, or drama, they know they're in the presence of someone who respects themselves deeply. And that kind of self-respect invites nothing less than respect in return. Hold your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Guard your reactions like they carry weight, because they do. And never forget, the way you respond tells the world everything it needs to know about the standard you live by. Respond with clarity, respond with intention, or don't respond at all. Because sometimes your silence is the most powerful answer you can give. Respect is not earned by how much you tolerate. It's earned by what you refuse to allow. One of the most defining boundaries you will ever set in your life is the one that says, I will not accept disrespect in any form from anyone. That simple, unshakable standard becomes the line between who gets to stay in your life and who gets left behind. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of deep, unshakable self-worth. Disrespect doesn't always come loudly. It can be quiet, subtle, wrapped in sarcasm or jokes at your expense. It can wear the face of passive aggression, constant interruptions, or the slow erosion of your voice in conversations that make you feel small. And every time you let it slide, even just once, you're silently teaching the other person that your dignity is flexible, that your self-respect has a price, and the moment you begin to negotiate your value, others will follow your lead. There's a difference between forgiveness and tolerance. You can forgive someone without giving them continued access to your life. You can let go of resentment without giving up your standards. But if you find yourself constantly making excuses for someone's poor behavior, hoping they'll see your loyalty and change, you're not setting a boundary. You're building a cage around your self-worth. The truth is, how someone treats you is their choice, but how long you allow it is yours. And the longer you wait to address it, the harder it becomes to reclaim the space you've surrendered. That's why you need to create a clear, powerful boundary around your self-respect. A boundary that says, one time is enough. I don't argue about my value. I don't debate how I deserve to be treated. I show you by walking away. Walking away doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've stopped wasting your strength on someone who refuses to grow. It means you're done explaining the basics of decency. And yes, it may cost you people. It may shrink your circle. But what you lose in numbers, you gain in peace. You gain in clarity. You gain in power. Because when you no longer fear the loss of someone who disrespects you, you begin to attract those who respect you without question. Psychology teaches us that boundaries backed by consequences are the only ones people take seriously. If you draw a line but never follow through, you train others to see your limits as optional. That's not a boundary, it's a suggestion. And suggestions don't earn respect. But the moment you stand firm, not with rage but with certainty, people take notice. You don't need to yell. You don't need to convince. You just need to mean what you say. There is strength in removing yourself from what diminishes you, in no longer explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, in realizing that peace is not something you beg for, it's something you protect. And if someone cannot be in your life without disrupting that peace, they've already disqualified themselves from your space. Holding this boundary doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It makes you intentional. It makes you someone who values connection, but not at the cost of self-betrayal. That's a rare kind of strength. It's the kind that makes people pause before they speak to you. The kind that demands respect without demanding attention. Let them call you difficult. Let them say you've changed. Because the truth is, you have. You've stopped shrinking for comfort. You've stopped nodding in silence when your soul was screaming. You've stopped tolerating the kind of behavior that once made you question your own worth. That change isn't just necessary. It's transformation. And transformation always begins with a boundary. You're not responsible for someone else's inability to treat you with kindness. But you are responsible for how long you stay where respect is absent. You are responsible for your healing, your energy, your space. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to leave the table where you're no longer being served anything but pain. No more softening your edges to avoid conflict. No more watering down your standards to keep the peace. You are not here to teach grown people how to behave. You are here to live with dignity, to move with purpose, to exist in spaces where your presence is appreciated, not tolerated, where your silence is not mistaken for weakness, but honored as wisdom. The moment you set this boundary, everything changes. People either step up or step away. Both are answers, and both are gifts, because life is too short to explain your value to people who only understand your silence as permission. From now on, let your absence speak louder than your explanations. Let your boundaries be the voice that says, I know what I'm worth, and I refuse to settle for anything less. That is the language of respect. That is the boundary that changes everything. The deepest kind of respect doesn't come from how others see you. It comes from how firmly you hold on to yourself. In a world that constantly asks you to bend, to adjust, to tone yourself down, one of the most powerful boundaries you can ever build is the one that protects your identity. The moment you begin sacrificing your passions, your goals, your voice just to keep someone close, you don't grow love, you grow resentment. And you don't earn respect. You slowly lose it, piece by piece, until one day you wake up and realize the version of yourself you're living isn't even yours anymore. You were not created to play small. You were not born to become a watered-down version of who you truly are just because someone else is intimidated by your fire. You have dreams for a reason. They are not random. They are not selfish. They are your calling. And when you protect those dreams, when you prioritize your growth, your purpose, your identity, you're doing something few people have the courage to do. You're saying, I will not shrink to fit into someone else's comfort. I will rise, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You were never meant to disappear into someone else's life. You were meant to build your own. And anyone who respects you will understand that they won't ask you to give up your goals to make them feel bigger. They won't resent your ambition or compete with your vision. They'll support it. They'll admire it. And if they can't, it's not your job to dim yourself. It's your job to keep shining until the right people find you in your full light. Too many people confuse love with sacrifice. They believe that if they give everything, they'll finally be enough. But here's the truth. If you have to abandon your identity to be loved, that love was never meant for you. Real connection doesn't ask you to choose between love and purpose. It challenges you to grow into both. And anyone who truly sees your worth will never ask you to break yourself just to prove you care. You are allowed to dream. You are allowed to chase goals that scare you. You are allowed to become more, even if it means leaving behind people who only knew the old version of you. Growth is uncomfortable. It threatens those who benefit from your stagnation. But the ones who are meant to be in your life won't be shaken by your evolution. They'll cheer for it. They'll match it. And if they can't, let them fall away without guilt. You were not made to stay small so others could feel tall. Protecting your identity is not about becoming selfish. It's about becoming rooted in what matters to you, rooted in your values, your calling, your vision. Because without those roots, you'll sway in every direction people pull you. You'll say yes when you mean no. You'll follow paths that were never yours to begin with. And eventually, you'll forget the sound of your own voice under the noise of everyone else's expectations. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that makes them comfortable. You owe yourself the courage to be who you truly are, unfiltered, unapologetic, alive. And when you show up like that, fully anchored in your truth, you become someone who is not only respected, but unforgettable. People may not always understand your choices. They may criticize your focus, your independence, your intensity. Let them. Their confusion is not your burden to carry. You weren't born to be understood by everyone. You were born to be true. And truth doesn't always make others feel safe. Sometimes it challenges, sometimes it confronts, but it always leads to freedom, the kind of freedom that makes your soul breathe again. This is your reminder, you are not too much. Your dreams are not too big. Your voice is not too loud. You are simply living in a world that tries to normalize smallness, but you were never built for that. You were built for meaning, for depth, for purpose. And every time you protect that purpose, every time you choose to stand firm in who you are, you send a clear message to the world, I will not be edited to make others feel secure. Let that be your power. Let that be your boundary, to hold your identity with both hands and say, this is me, and I will not lose myself to gain anyone else. Because when you stop chasing approval, you start attracting alignment. And that alignment brings you something more valuable than attention. It brings you peace. It brings you clarity. It brings you the kind of respect that's not based on how well you perform, but on how boldly you live. You are not here to please the world. You are here to walk in your truth, to build something meaningful, to rise without shame. So stay rooted, stay honest, stay loyal to your mission, and watch how the world begins to rise to meet you. Not because you begged for it, but because you finally stopped hiding. Not everyone deserves access to your world, and the more grounded you become in who you are, the more you'll realize how much of your peace depends on the people you allow into your space. Your boundaries are not just personal limits, they are filters. Filters that determine what stays in your life and what needs to go. The stronger your boundaries, the clearer your life becomes. Because not everyone will respect your values, your time, your emotional energy, and that's the point. Boundaries exist so you don't have to keep explaining what should be obvious to people who refuse to listen. You can't control how others behave, but you can control the distance you keep between yourself and their dysfunction. Not everyone who smiles is safe. Not everyone who shows interest has good intentions. And not everyone who asks for your time deserves your energy. When you start enforcing strong boundaries, the wrong people will fall away. But that's not a loss. It's protection. It's clarity. It's your life reorganizing itself to make space for what's real. It's easy to think that setting boundaries is about being harsh or cutting people off. But true boundaries are about love, self-love. They are acts of self-preservation, not acts of cruelty. Because giving endless access to people who drain you is not generosity. It's self-abandonment. And the longer you do it, the more resentful you become, not just of others, but of yourself. You begin to question your own worth. You wonder why you're always tired, always giving, always feeling empty. The answer isn't that you're too sensitive. It's that you've been too open to the wrong energies for too long. When you begin to filter your life through strong boundaries, the shift is undeniable. You find yourself less involved in meaningless conversations. You stop attending spaces where you don't feel seen. You stop apologizing for needing space, silence, solitude. And in that shift, you reclaim your power, not by force, but by refusal. You refuse to shrink. You refuse to explain. You refuse to carry the emotional weight of people who refuse to carry their own. One of the most transformative realizations you can have is this. It's not your job to fix people, not your job to carry them, heal them, or make them understand your worth. It is your job to be clear, clear on who you are, clear on what you value, clear on what behaviors are no longer welcome in your life. And once you're clear, the rest becomes simple. You stop chasing closure. You stop needing validation. You stop hoping people will one day wake up and treat you better. Instead, you move. You create distance. You protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Strong boundaries make your life simpler, not harder. They strip away the noise, the drama, the confusion. They leave you with people who get it, who respect your energy, who don't need constant reminders of how to treat you, who show up with consistency instead of chaos. And that's where real connection grows. In the quiet spaces that are no longer filled with emotional tension or performance. In the grounded moments of mutual respect. It takes courage to draw those lines, to say this is not okay with me anymore, to walk away from what you once tolerated. But that courage is the price of freedom, because freedom isn't found in doing whatever you want. It's found in having the strength to say no to what doesn't align with your soul. It's found in trusting yourself so deeply that you no longer fear being alone with your standards. Let people be uncomfortable with your boundaries. Let them question your distance. Let them fall away if they can't meet you with respect. That discomfort is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to honor your growth, to protect the life you're building, to create a space where you can thrive, not just survive. And that kind of space requires standards. It requires decisions. It requires the ability to say, I've worked too hard to go back to who I used to be. You don't need 1,000 people around you. You need a few who see you, who honor your time, who speak your language, and you find those people by raising your standards, not lowering them. By protecting your energy, not giving it away, in hopes someone will finally value what you offer. The right people will not be threatened by your strength. They will be drawn to it. And the wrong people, they'll simply walk away. Let them. You are allowed to choose peace over popularity, depth over attention, alignment over attachment. Your life becomes more powerful the moment you stop trying to keep everyone and start becoming intentional about who stays. Your boundaries are not just for protection, they're for direction. They guide your path. They define your circle. They elevate your life. So protect your space like your future depends on it, because it does. The people you surround yourself with either reinforce your worth or slowly erode it. Choose wisely. And never forget, the boundary that filters out the wrong ones is the same one that makes space for everything you truly deserve. Hold it with strength, keep it with love, and walk forward knowing the right ones will never require you to let it go. When you start protecting your space with intention, something profound begins to unfold. You become unshakable. Not because life gets easier, but because your inner world no longer depends on anyone else's permission. You stop living for acceptance. You stop bending to avoid conflict. You stop shrinking to fit into places that were never meant for your power. And the moment you detach your worth from people's opinions, their approval loses its grip on your life. This is the boundary that doesn't need to be spoken, but is always felt. It radiates from within. It's in the way you carry yourself, the way you choose your words, the way you decide what deserves your time. It's a quiet certainty that says, I know who I am, and I won't abandon that to be liked. That energy speaks louder than arguments. It commands presence without a single word, because people can feel when you no longer need anything from them to be whole. And that's where respect is born, not in what you demand from others, but in what you refuse to compromise within yourself. You become someone who doesn't chase, doesn't convince, doesn't beg for connection. You don't entertain chaos just to feel included. You don't lower your standards just to avoid being alone. You've learned that solitude with peace is more powerful than company with confusion. That's the mindset of someone who's done the work. Someone who has built a home within themselves so solid, no storm can shake it. The boundary that changes everything is the one you build with your own inner voice. Because the loudest battles are the silent ones, the ones where you fight to choose yourself when it's easier to settle, easier to please, easier to stay where it's comfortable. But comfort is a trap when it comes at the cost of your growth. You weren't built for easy, you were built for real. And real growth demands that you honor your truth even when it costs you the temporary approval of others. No one can respect you more than you respect yourself. And self-respect isn't found in ego or arrogance, it's found in consistency, in the quiet discipline of showing up for your values, in refusing to engage in things that drain you, in walking away from people who love the old version of you but can't handle the one you're becoming. Every time you choose alignment over attachment, you grow, you rise, you evolve. This is what strength looks like. It's not loud, it's not reactive, it's not dramatic, it's calm, it's measured, it's deeply rooted in clarity. And when that clarity becomes your foundation, life no longer pulls you in 100 directions. You stop living on defense. You stop letting circumstances decide your mood. You stop giving emotional access to people who haven't earned the right to be that close. Your peace becomes your non-negotiable. Your future becomes your focus. And your energy is no longer spent on things that aren't helping you build either. You don't owe anyone access to a version of you that no longer exists. Let them miss the old you. Let them wonder why you're different. Let them criticize the distance. You didn't change to be understood. You changed to be free. And freedom always costs comfort. It always costs familiarity. But what you gain is worth everything you leave behind. You gain clarity, you gain peace. You gain the ability to live with your head high, knowing you didn't fold just to keep someone who couldn't meet your standard. Respect is a reflection. When people see you holding your boundaries without apology, they start to mirror that energy back. You begin attracting what you are. People who honor your space, your time, your voice. People who bring clarity, not confusion. People who show up with purpose, not pressure. And slowly, your life begins to align. Not by accident, but by design, your design. This is the boundary that empowers everything else. The decision to stop abandoning yourself. The decision to finally say, I will no longer negotiate who I am just to be accepted. That's not selfishness. That's leadership. That's ownership. That's what it means to live with intention. So stay committed to this version of you. The one who speaks truth even when it shakes. The one who walks away even when it hurts. The one who protects their energy like their future depends on it, because it does. You weren't born to be everyone's solution. You were born to be your own foundation. Build that. Guard that. And trust that every sacrifice made for your growth will return to you in strength, clarity, and respect. Not from those who need you to shrink, but from those who rise with you in truth. There is a moment in every person's life where silence becomes sacred. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of self-mastery. The silence that says, I no longer need to explain myself. My presence is my answer. My results are my response. That silence is not emptiness, it's discipline. It's the sound of a person who no longer chases noise to feel worthy. It's the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing to prove but everything to protect. When you truly step into your worth, you stop oversharing. You stop advertising your plans, your pain, your progress. Not because you're hiding, but because you've grown. You realize that real strength moves in silence. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't crave attention. It knows that everything valuable in life, respect, peace, progress, grows best in protected spaces. The boundary that earns the deepest respect is the one where you choose to stay grounded in purpose while the world pushes for distraction. You don't get pulled into arguments. You don't feed into gossip. You don't waste your breath trying to convince people who have already decided how they want to see you. Instead, you keep building. Quietly, steadily, relentlessly. Because your life is no longer about being seen. It's about being solid. People respect what they can't predict. And when you become someone who doesn't react emotionally to every comment, who doesn't post every move, who doesn't give everyone access to your inner world, you become powerful. Not in a loud way, but in a grounded, unshakable way. Your silence becomes a wall that filters out the chaos. Your restraint becomes a mirror that exposes other people's noise. And in that space, you earn something louder than applause. You earn presence. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your process. Growth isn't a performance. Healing isn't for display. Progress doesn't require permission. The more deeply you evolve, the more you understand the value of privacy. Not secrecy, privacy. The quiet dignity of building without needing to announce it. The wisdom of working without